Okay, good evening everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 333 News. I'm News Anchor Wario, and in tonight's episode, we're going to bring you our full and detailed forecast of Tropical Storm / Hurricane Debby, which is expected to bring historic levels of flooding and will impact many regions, including Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and even bringing impacts up here to New England. And while the intensity isn't expected to go too far beyond Category 1 status, Debby is expected to stall out in the southeast and then move up directly through New England afterwards. So stay tuned, as millions of people will be seeing major impacts, and the storm has now been confirmed to be heading this direction. Basically, it's going to be impacting the entire east coast of the United States, so we urge all of you to be on high alert, and there are going to be some very historic impacts from this storm, and the main thing is going to be historic levels of flooding. So we're going to be taking it to Donkey Kong at the meteorology studio, and he's going to have your full and detailed forecast ready for you guys. So let's get to it. Over to you, Donkey Kong. Alright, welcome to the meteorology studio. I'm Donkey Kong, the meteorologist, and tonight we're going to be doing a lot of meteorology in the meteorology studio because we have another hurricane. At least former hurricane, because it was a hurricane at one point, but now a tropical storm, and it's going to be bringing some intense, major, historic impacts to the entire east coast of the United States. So, we're going to be looking at everything that you need to know about Debby. But first, let's start with your current conditions. Right now, we're currently looking at overcast skies out there, 75 degrees right about there, and 85% relative humidity. Still pretty humid out there, We're still, recovering from the recent heat wave that we've had, which is the third heat wave this summer, in fact, so just, pointing that out. Oh, and yeah, the winds out of the southwest at 10 miles an hour. Cannot forget about that. It's a little bit breezy out there, not that bad, but, still figured I would mention that. Alright, so, let's go ahead and get started with your map and radar screen to look at what Debby's got in store. Yeah. Alright, so this is the map and radar screen, and it's been a while since we've been here, tracking a storm, but Debby is going to be a very major one. And it is also expected to make local impacts as well, so we figured that a full and detailed forecast was well in order, and we're going to get started with that right now. So the first map, let me get to the side here. This is just the National Weather Service's Cone of Uncertainty, issued by the National Hurricane Center. Credits go to them for the first few maps that we've got here. So, yeah. This is what we're looking at for the storm track. As of right now, currently a tropical storm, actually right over the Florida-Georgia line, as you can see. It may have moved a little bit since then, but, this is what we got for the latest imagery here. And as you can see, it's going to be re-entering the Atlantic Ocean. Then it's going to be making that northern bend, and as you can see, it's going to be taking a very long time to do so. It's going to be stalling out there, and it's going to, well, at least try to re-intensify, but, it might not make much progress. The main point is it's going to be stalling out there, so it's going to be there for a very long period of time, and what that means is a lot of rain for the southeast, and we're going to be getting to just how much rain there will be right now, actually. So, here's the next map. And this is the rainfall forecast for the southeastern corner of the United States. And you can see it kind of goes up to the mid-Atlantic as well. And we're going to be seeing the other half of that map in just a bit. But, this is what we've got for the southeast corner of the United States for a rainfall forecast from Debby. And you can see there's actually a little chart to the right there. And it's going to be your diagram, your key for how much rainfall is expected there. And as you can see, basically, South Carolina has the bullseye of this, and there are some secluded spots of 20-plus inches of rain expected in South Carolina, so be prepared. There's going to be a lot of flooding going on. It is going to be a huge history maker. So, yeah, definitely no joke here. This storm is going to be making some major, major history, and nothing to joke around about here. And even surrounding South Carolina, where the bullseye obviously is, you can see there's still a lot of rainfall expected in widespread areas as well, 10-plus inches in most of the Carolinas, actually, and Georgia. And that's also on top of what we've already seen in Florida and Georgia, so, yeah. Alright. Here is the third map out of 5, and this is the wind field potential, or the, tropical storm force wind potential, and basically it's just a percentage. You can see the scale at the bottom there, and basically, the further to the right, darker the color is, closer to that magenta color, it's going to be a higher probability of tropical storm force winds. And anywhere in any sort of color at all is any chance at seeing tropical storm force winds, but we also cannot rule out the potential to see those tropical storm force winds up here in New England as well. And it is especially considering the fact that the green actually makes it pretty close here. So, yeah, even though it ends just shy of New England, there is still a chance that it's going to extend further north, and we could be seeing tropical storm force winds here too. However, the wind is the least of our concerns. So, yeah. Alright, now let's get to some more local maps. So, here's map number 4. This is the rainfall forecast for our region, New England, because Debby is expected to actually move through this area too. I keep saying it time and time again. So, basically, what you can see, widespread areas of at least 2 inches of rain are expected. It's definitely nowhere near as bad as the southeast, where they're expecting tens of inches of rain. 10 plus inches in a lot of areas. Here, I don't think we're supposed to see anywhere above 7 or 8 inches. But, there's still going to be a decent amount of rain here too, so flooding potential is also here as well. Just going to make that clear because the entire East Coast is kind of under that flooding threat. So, yeah. Anyways, there's the key up to the top left. And the only colors you really need to know are that bright yellow, which is going to be 2 to 4 inches. A darker yellow, which is kind of like a bright orange, 4 to 6. And then a darker orange, which is going to be 6 to 9. So, yeah. A lot of rain is expected with this system, Just, be careful, especially going outside. And most of this is going to be on Saturday. We're going to see that in the 7-day forecast, but, there's definitely going to be a lot of rain all the way up and down the East Coast. So, yeah. As for winds, get that map here. Winds are going to be not really that big of a threat. So, there's only 2 areas of concern, or 2 colors of concern, may I say, for the wind gusts. The 30 to 40 mile an hour yellow and the 40 to 50 mile an hour orange. So, yeah. And you can see it's really, 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 really exclusive to the southeast coast of New England. And the Cape and the Islands are kind of the only place that you can possibly see in excess of 40 mile an hour wind gusts. Other than that, it's just going to be 30 plus mile an hour wind gusts for the south coast of New England. That's kind of all there is for the wind threat. We don't really expect winds to be that much of an issue with this storm, because it's really going to be the rain. The rain is going to be, really taking the spotlight here, because there's going to be inches of rain in a short period of time, all up and down the East Coast, as I've said. Alright, so that's going to do it for the maps. Let's look at the threat levels. So there are your threat levels, and for the first time in at least a while, we have a level 5 threat on the list. Air conditioner's coming on, hold on. Alright, so I'm going to step a little bit to the side here. We're starting with flooding at a level 5. The catastrophic threat, something that we rarely ever have to bring out, but whenever we do have to bring out a level 5 threat on the threat level list, it's not a good thing, because it means the impacts are going to be catastrophic, and for flooding, that certainly is going to be the case all up and down the East Coast. There's going to be a lot of flooding with this storm. Alright, next up on the list, storm surge. We have it at level 3. It's already been happening throughout Florida as Debby made its landfall, but storm surge is, well, definitely going to be a threat, but really only for the southeast. And while you can't expect a storm surge up to like 6 feet above those seawalls, it's not really going to be as bad as the flooding, by a long shot. That's why flooding is level 5, because, the flooding is what we really expect to see a lot of. For power outages, that's mainly also going to be a southeast threat, but it could also go all the way up and down the East Coast. Level 3, and it's mainly going to be from the flooding factor and a tiny bit of the wind factor as well, but it's mainly going to be because the rain's going to be so heavy and so prolonged. So, yeah, power outage is definitely also a concern, but definitely not as much of a concern, once again, as the flooding. Same thing by the storm surge. And, of course, the wind threat, we can't leave that out, but wind threat is a level 1, pretty low wind threat, because Debby's going to be mainly hovering at tropical storm / category 1 status, so winds aren't really going to be that big of a deal. Especially not once it makes it up here, likely going to be a tropical depression by that time. It might re-intensify to tropical storm, but who knows? We're not entirely sure just yet. But in any case, the wind's going to be a level 1 threat, and we really don't expect the wind to be that big of a deal, so yeah. Alright, now to your 7-day forecast. Alright, at last, the 7-day forecast. This is the part that everybody's been waiting for, I guarantee it, because we've got a new weather icon to unveil with the coming of this storm. Alright, we're going to get started tomorrow, Tuesday. We're going to be looking at some rain, 75 for high, 60 for low, and you're going to see the general trend of this week is going to be really rainy, and that is especially considering Tropical Storm Debby making its way in on the weekend, so yeah, it's going to be a lot of rain throughout the entire week, basically. and that's going to be starting out tomorrow as well. So yeah. Then on Wednesday, we're going to be having some heavier rain, a high of 70 and a low of 60. It's going to be cooling way down too, so yeah. Some other systems are going to be moving through pre-Debby, but Debby is definitely going to be the main event as you see later on in the forecast. But definitely noteworthy that Wednesday also has the potential for some heavy rain, and it's going to be a cooler day as well. Alright, on Thursday, we're going to be looking at partly cloudy skies, a high of 75, a low of 64. Not too bad. Probably going to be one of the nicest days of the week in this forecast. Alright, turning around here, on Friday, Debby's going to be kind of starting to move in, so we're going to see some moderate rain, a high of 77 and a low of 70, and the rain's mainly going to be in the afternoon, evening hours, and it's going to start decently light, so yeah, it's going to be kind of like the pre-Debby precipitation before we get to Saturday. And speaking of that, on Saturday, we're going to be looking at some extremely heavy rain. Ignore the wind because we're not really going to look at much of a wind threat, but this is one of our newest weather icons, the extreme rainstorm weather icon. So yeah, that's an indication of Debby being here on Saturday. The rain's going to be quite heavy. High of 80 and a low of 67, so there is that. Alright, on Sunday, we're going to look at some storms. High of 81, low of 64, so yeah, some storms to follow up on Debby. Because we just have a lot of moisture and storm fuel in the air. And then to end out the forecast on Monday, mostly sunny skies, high of 79, a low of 63, so a decent end. Well, that's kind of like post-storm conditions, but yeah. So, yeah, general consensus, very wet week ahead of us. Anyways, that's the 370 forecast, and we're going to take it back to Wario at the news desk. Back to you, Wario. Right, thank you, Donkey Kong. So, yeah, very significant flooding threat ahead of us, and that goes for everybody up and down the East Coast, in fact, so that also includes people in the local area, you know, southern New England. In fact, all of New England is kind of encompassed in this too, so yeah. While the primary area of impact is going to be the southeast corner of the United States, including Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, the storm is going to be bringing impacts, especially flooding impacts, all the way up and down the East Coast. So everybody be prepared. It's going to be a historic one. It's going to be a big storm. It's going to be a pretty big deal. And even though Debby is of low intensity, you know, it's hovering between Tropical Storm and Category 1, it doesn't have to be a Category 5 to make history. So, yeah, it's completely different from Beryl. It's, you know, different case. It's going to be history because it's going to have a lot of flooding up and down the East Coast. And it really goes to show you that one storm can change a whole season. Anyways, that's going to do it for tonight's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully all of you are prepared for Debby, especially those of you who are already under Debby's impact, because it is currently moving over Florida and Georgia. And that's all we got. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, I'm your news anchor, Wario, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Wario, out.